Just the fact that Archie is just extremely confident in who he is. And I love that, yes, we're talking about sex work, but he is not ashamed of that. And I think that is a beautiful color that we added to the story, is that it isn't a thing that he has to hide from or not allow people in to know about. It's a thing that he actually celebrates and kind of leans into. And I admire that courage that we gave, Archie in that moment. So that felt very specific and clear.
Hi, everybody. I'm Maureen Lee Linker, and I'm a digital writer here at Entertainment Weekly. I am so excited to have Jeremy Pope here with us today as part of EW's Emmy Awardist coverage. Jeremy is nominated for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Limited Series or Movie for his role as Archie Coleman, the screenwriter, in Ryan Murphy's Hollywood on Netflix.
Your story is important.
Don't go thinking otherwise. Don't let your story go untold. You are important.
Welcome, Jeremy.
Hey, good to see you.
So first of all, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
You make your Broadway debut, and you become the 6th person in history to be nominated twice in the same year for different performances. Now you make your television debut, and you're the only person in your category for your show nominated for an Emmy. I mean, how does that feel?
It's a roller coaster, if you will. It's like my mind is just blown. I'm so incredibly grateful, and this past year has just been unbelievable.
When you're envisioning your career and all of the things that could happen, did this trajectory ever enter into your like wildest hopes and dreams for this to happen this quickly like this?
It's really just been a beautiful journey. I moved to New York right after high school, went to school, and just started meeting people, and it kind of led me here, and at this point, I'm just riding the wave because this has kind of surpassed a lot of my dreams. So it's really beautiful and kind of cool to just see what's next,
So for the Outstanding Limited Series category, they don't have you submit specific episodes for consideration. It's sort of the entire body of work. But you've selected a scene today from Hollywood for us to dive deeper into. And it's sort of where Archie lays out who he is to Jack, who ends up becoming an essential partner in his journey here through the rest of the series. What made you want to choose this scene? I mean, what was it about it that made you want to focus on it?
Explain yourself.
What do you want me to say? I can remember the feeling of shooting that scene only because it was one of the first scenes that we shot for Hollywood, and I was working with Ryan. I was a bit anxious and nervous because there was just a lot of new things that I was experiencing and wanting to show up prepared. And we had spent maybe like 2 hours doing wide coverage and kind of shooting different things. And Ryan is a man of few words on set, so you kind of like checking in just to be like, am I good or am I trash? Like, just let me know which direction to go in. And he wasn't really saying much, but he was like, you're fine. It's just other thing. He kept saying other thing. Like, you could tell something was off, but I didn't really know what it was. And about that third hour, we were starting to do some coverage and close-ups. And he came in very politely and was like, we're done for today. And I was like, okay. So no one asked any questions. He was like, it's just not working. I need to rework the scene. I see it differently in my head. So I left, and me and David, who was my scene partner for that, we just kind of were like, what's going on? I don't really know. So we went to the trailer. I'm taking my wig off, makeup. I'm making dinner plans with friends. As I'm getting in my car to like back out, the PA is running out like, just kidding, Ryan wants to do the scene now. And I was like, okay, but we came back. He had reworked the scene, re-envisioned it, repositioned us. But really, it was just a testament of Ryan he knows exactly what he wants, and he takes time to articulate that and to create that. And I appreciated him, especially being that this is the introduction of Archie. He wanted it to be a specific way and to be very clear. And it wasn't that way when we started it. So he was willing to take the L, if you will, and reschedule the whole day just so we can make that moment right.
Can you point to, especially for Archie, what it was that you tweaked that day that made it start working?
Yeah, I think really what it was the set was built to look just like the true restaurant or the true bar that we were, in that time. And there weren't booths. So I think in his head, he had imagined that there would be two people sitting across from each other. But instead, we were sitting next to each other. So he hated that I had to deliver this story about my life and where I come from with my head kind of turned to the right. He was like, I need you to be strong and poignant and be able to like really come across. So we just tweaked the scene a little bit and had him go to the corner of the bar so that we could be kind of at an angle. He also threw in the element of, I want Archie to be so cool that he's smoking. And mind you, I don't smoke. So like here I am like smoking these god-awful fake cigarettes, trying not to cough in between takes. And we made it work and we finessed it. But, I think, again, I just really appreciated him taking the time and being very specific with that moment and not letting it be something like in the edit we're like, oh, it didn't land as hard as we want. Because, again, that is kind of the first time we hear from Archie. And, we get to hear a little bit of background about him and where he comes from and what he does and what he's after. It's like a lot of things there. So he really protected me and made sure that scene landed. And I think it did. I landed the smoking, if anything.
Oh man, it's so funny how hard that is. Like, you think it should be such a simple thing,
yeah,
and then it's this intricate dance of where your hands are and when you're talking and when it's in your mouth.
When are you saying it and doing it? You know what I mean? And I think it's like, Ron says that they're giving you like these fake cigarettes, which just taste awful. So you're out here like trying to say your lines and about to choke. It was an experiment, if you will. We knocked it out, and he was very happy with it, and it ended up being a good day. I did miss dinner plans with my friends, but it ended up being
it was
a good
worth
day.
it.
Yeah.
Well, there's that line in the scene about Peg Entwistle and why Archie chose to write about her, because she was someone the town wouldn't accept, and then that's something he could relate to. Was that sort of a distillation of who he was for you, or a touchstone that you kept going back to throughout?
For sure, yeah. I think specifically with Archie being a black man and also a gay man, he has to code switch a bit, and I think a lot of black artists had to do that during that time. So for Archie to come up with this idea that if I tell a story about a white woman who's an outsider, maybe like other people will start to empathize and sympathize with that, but also it's a parallel to how most black artists and most black people have had to walk their life during that time. And that is kind of the brilliance of someone like Archie, who knows that he's got to be a bit smarter and he's got to be a bit all-knowing and know if he wants to get into those rooms, if he wants to take his rightful place in this business, in the industry, he has to kind of finesse it a bit. So I think that was his way of, sure, Peg Entwistle jumps off the Hollywood sign because she feels, unaccepted, unwanted. Like, did he care about her? Doesn't know her. But like, also that's what he experienced and feels at times. So how about he writes a movie with that narrative? Maybe the studio will accept it, and then maybe that'll be his way in to write a movie or to have a movie produced that isn't just for colored people, that isn't just for black people, that isn't just run in the South, but it can be a movie that is, ran across the country. Be the first screenwriter to do so.
The scene really lays out who he is. He's explaining where he's come from, where he wants to go, how he feels about his life right now. I think it's kind of rare that we get scenes like that where we just straight out have a character say who they are and what they're about, and it's not something that's just subtext. So how do you prepare for a scene like that? I mean, is that daunting to just come out and say it? Is it helpful?
I mean, I think they made it easy for me because I had a lot of conversations with Ryan and the writers in the room, but I think approaching someone like Archie and the story that we're telling about this black man trying to make it in Hollywood at the time, it's like there's something about him that has to be so confident and so swag, like, because ultimately he wants to win and he has these big dreams and wants to break these, glass ceilings, if you will. So you can't come in timid. And I think there's something about him that, like, that is what makes him Archie. He's like, I'm going to get this coin no matter what. Like, I'm making these moves so that I can make these moves. And him to just say it out there and to lay it out there, I think is pretty dope and pretty impressive. So if anything, I leaned into that because he's got more courage than maybe, most folks would have in a situation like that. And especially if we're talking about a period piece in, the 40s where he's initially outing himself, if you will. He's giving so much of himself to this man that he doesn't know. But again, that's kind of like he's got nothing to lose. So he kind of puts all of those things out there, which ultimately ends up serving him for the greater.
Very courageous and incredibly self-aware. As you mentioned, the scene is in Schwab's drugstore, which they recreated for the show. The sets and the costumes in this whole series are amazing. So when you're working in a space like that, as we see in the scene, how much is that enhancing sort of the world building and Archie's identity for you? Yeah,
it is kind of one of the most important elements as far as the world we were creating, because I had a couple of fittings that were like 4 or 5 hours long. We were like spending so much time really building Archie's closet. And while it was grueling in the moments that we were, fitting for, it made it really cool to kind of walk on set and then have a closet of 4 to 5 outfits to choose from and be like, what is Archie feeling today? And we, and then walking on the sets and seeing all background and all the people, just it really transports you to the world and adds that extra thing that you needed. So while you're doing your homework at home and, preparing your mind for the scene and the work you'll do, I started to leave a lot more room for the surprises on the day, if you will. What was going to happen around me? What was that going to feel like? What was that going to smell like? And entertain that and use that. So it was cool because, again, I got to transport into this world. Here we are on these sets of Schwab's that is identical to Schwab's. So I'm like, okay, use your space, use your environment. And, everyone that was on set with us was so special. I always loved going to talk to the background because their hair was always so nice and they're the coolest clothes. And I was just like, this is so dope. We're fully in a different world right now. But it played a huge part in how I entered the world as Archie and what I felt and how he expressed himself. So shout out to everyone who was on the creative team for that, because they really made it easier to really fall in deep into that world, because it looked identical. I felt so swag. I felt so cool with those clothes, even though those pants felt like they were up to my neck. I always would get a note pull your pants up. They're supposed to be up past your belly button. But when I look at the footage and I see the photos, we looked pretty sharp.
Jumping off this scene a little bit, the great love story of the series is Archie and Rock Hudson. Mm-hmm. And so I just wanted to ask how much of excuse the pun, rock Jake was for you in this process, and kind of how essential that collaboration was for you in building Archie and his journey.
Me and Jake had a lot of moments together, and he was such a gracious scene partner and human being during that season, because it was our first time working with Ryan. Sometimes we were shooting multiple episodes at the same time. So he truly was my quote unquote rock, if you will. Our first day on set together, we were shooting episode 1 and 2, but we were shooting a lot of our intimate scenes. So it was kind of like, hey, nice to see you again. Also, we're fully naked. There's an intimacy code. There's a lot of things happening. And I remember when it was just me and him in a room getting ready for the scene, we really just made a pact to if you ever feel uncomfortable, or if you ever feel like you need someone to talk to or whatever it is, let me be that for you, because this could feel very daunting. He was, going through his own journey of how to bring Rock to life and how much of himself he can bring. And we kind of just allowed each other to be free and to that this relationship should feel safe. At the time, we didn't know where the series was going, so we didn't know the hopeful, triumphant ending that we have. But we knew that if anything, we were going to need each other in the show and in real life. So it's if anything, just always lean into that. And it did, and we did that day. And every day after that, he really held me down and made me feel safe and comfortable in the scene work, and allowed us to kind of play and just bounce off each other. And I think that's why the chemistry just resonates so vibrantly off the screen, just because we really made a pact to lean in and be there for each other. And I love him dearly because he really, really did his thing and made sure I was good.
So the series, spoiler alert, ends with Archie winning an Oscar for screenwriting. And there's this really incredibly moving speech that you give where you remind everyone that their stories are important and their voices deserve to be heard. How emotional was that for you shooting that? I mean, was there a little bit of Jeremy coming through in that moment?
Yeah, always. In that moment specifically. It was a beautiful day when we filmed that, because it was kind of our last episode, but we also was one of the first times that everyone in the show was together in the same space. I got to look out and see Patty and Holland and Dylan and Jim and all the kids, and it was so really, really special. And again, the background was so supportive. It felt like I actually won an Oscar. They were rooting, and we block shot the scene. So we shot maybe 30, 40 minutes of the last episode, kind of as one take. So it felt like an award show where we just kept running. It wasn't a lot of start stop. It was kind of let's just run it through. I think we had 8 or 9 cameras kind of moving all over. So we really just got to be in the space and celebrate each other. But when I do give that speech and Archie's speaking, it was very special to have those words, but I got to say them to the audience, say them to the crowd, but also say them for myself, and to know that I am enough and there is space for me, and that my story is important, that my narrative is important. And I knew how important this message was going to be once people saw that, because I felt it. I had chills in my body, and I was I'm so grateful to be in this moment for my own personal journey of how far I've come, of the unknowns when I was 17, telling my parents I wanted to move to New York to like do acting or to, you know, to use my creative gifts. And I really like took in that moment of like, this is what you prayed about. This is what you were manifesting for yourself. And, you know, we're going to keep going from here. And I hope that people that are watching the show get that sense of hope, get that sense of they are allowed to be in the room, that there is someone out there that is looking out for them and is going to care for them and to guide them on the journey. And it was just incredibly special.
Did you know going in that they were going to have that intercutting with the real people? Because that is so impactful as well.
For sure. I think that is actually what makes the speeches so incredibly special, to really see that narrative of, you know, people listening. Because at the time they couldn't watch. It wasn't something they were watching on TV, but just to hear the words of, you know, a black man winning an Oscar, and you're just kind of like stuck in what that would have felt like and how that would have changed someone's life and how it could have changed the world. I remember reading the script because we got it in parts. Again, we were like shooting the last episode, but hadn't got the full Oscar moment. And I remember reading it and I cried. I cried a lot reading it for the way that they wrapped up Hollywood. I think dealing with Ryan and just life, you sometimes are waiting for the sour ending, if you will, in the sense of like, oh, that's too good to be true. We can win, but to a point. So when he created this world where we're going to truly rewrite the wrongs and make history and make it an uplifting, hopeful ending, it brought tears in my eyes because I knew how powerful this message was going to be. You can watch all the episodes, but I'm like, just watch episode 7. Like, if you know what I mean? Like, you can get so much from that episode. Like, it's so much heart, and all the characters and players are in it. And it really was a special episode when we were making it, and it felt that way on the page. And I was so, you know, glad to see it kind of resonate the same way on the screen.
That's such a good piece of advice, because if there's anything Ryan's good at, it's recreating the Oscars, and then you get that extra oomph of this total wish fulfillment there, and it's really beautiful.
I'm proof that there are folks out there who want to hear it.
If you do win, can you see yourself saying some version of what Archie says? Like, have the writers already helped you out?
Listen, I might just start right from the top of Archie's speech and say, you are important. Your life has value. No, I mean, you know, if I win, truly, I'm so grateful to just be in this space. You know, this is my first go around with the Television Academy. And I cried when I got that nomination, just because it's a new group of people. It's a new group of support that I felt so strongly. You know, so much love was poured into my life and to the craft and the art. And it's special to be recognized. And to me, the win is just in the nomination and to have my photo next to some really incredible actors and artists. But to know like the work isn't done, and I'm just going to keep on hitting it and keep on moving, because at this point, the sky's the limit. You know, if anything, that's the message. I think that's what I would say is like, for anyone watching, just know the sky is truly the limit, and don't limit yourself by your own insecurities and fears and doubts.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Jeremy. I think I speak for everyone here at EW when I say that we really can't wait to see what you do next. It's been a meteoric 2 years for you, and I hope that trajectory just continues, because the work is phenomenal and can't wait to see more of it.
Thank you.